I'm Bill Woods. Welcome to round 7 of the Kart World Series. It's the Kart Grand Prix of Chicago. This is the first step in a mid-season stampede of kart racing, which comprises 8 North American-based races in just 10 weeks before the crews pick up their cars and parts and head to Europe for the British and German rounds. Incidentally, there's only 2 weeks break before those rounds anyway. So this event may not have been on the calendar at all. In fact, the Chicago Motor Speedway declared itself unable to promote any motorsport this year. Kart itself had to step in to promote the race on its own, which is a big undertaking and rare for this series. They're normally just worried about the day-to-day running of the events. They needed to keep this rich Illinois market alive, so they are now promoting it as well. In the brief West Coast swing before this round, Cristiano Di Marta forged a 20-point championship lead. Let's take a look at them now. He's achieved most of that on road courses, yet to really master the oval domain. However, at this circuit, he did taste success for PPI Motorsports 2 years ago, his only oval victory among 7 in kart racing. Beyond Di Marta, a very, very close battle for the championship. Now, last year, this event saw 9 different leaders before Kenny Brack took the win. And in contrast to Di Marta, all his kart success has been on oval tracks. Can he bounce back in this round? Well, more story. There's a new aerodynamic package for Chicago in 2002, adding 175 pounds of downforce and 75 pounds of drag through the addition of gurney lips to the rear wing and end plates, plus changes to the front wings. It's expected to improve competition at a track that has been very tough on drivers in its brief history. Drivers to watch for this weekend, well, plenty as usual. Paul Tracy has led more laps than any other driver this season, and they've all been on oval tracks. But he's not had a great time here in the second row with Kanaan, who, as we said, has some pedigree here. Junqueira and Fernandez on row 4. Then we have Carpentier. Tora Takagi actually went backwards. He was very quick in practice and then went down to 8th in the final qualifying. Dixon and Vassar on the next row, then Fittipaldi and Brack, who still is not that far off the pace, 0.36, even on this very quick lap. Tracy not having a good weekend by comparison, of course, to Dario Franchitti and the stablemate Michael Andretti. You can say the same there. Dominguez and then, of course, a little bit further back in the field. Now, before we get up to the track, would you believe there's been a minor debate in Chicago as to whether Franchitti's pole is actually his first pole on an oval track. He did start from pole in Rio back in 1998, you might recall, but some critics, including Rick Mears, who's an expert, claim that Rio's shape means it is not really an oval circuit. Mears argues that the more rectangular shape of Rio requires more of a road course setup. Something perhaps for you to argue about at home. Franchitti's response, incidentally, well, a pole is a pole, he said. I don't care where it comes from. Time to go racing now. We're going to Chicago. Your commentators are Lee Diffie and Jeremy Shaw.
The race analysis, 18 cars, of course, lining up and 250 laps of this just over 1 mile oval, 1.65 kilometres. Max speeds in excess of 300. They must pit every 68 laps, Jeremy.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And that pit lane speed limiter there, 80/140 kilometres now. There's a 2-stage limiter on these cars now. When they're going past the pit crews on pit lane itself, the limit is 50 miles an hour. Call it 80 kilometres an hour. When they leave the end of the last pit, all the way around to where they rejoin the racetrack in turn 2, it's a second stage, takes up to 140 kilometres an hour.
They pack up. They're in turn 3. Dario Franchitti edges alongside Alex Tagliani. We've been given word they're about to go green. They come onto the main straight and go green. Jim Swintel waves it. Franchitti gets away to a great start. Tagliani dives in. Kanaan has already moved up a position. We've got a crash and a big one. Turn 1. It's Brack and Vassar, I think. Brack was coming through trying to gather up. It is Kenny Brack. The Swede is out. And the two guys, well, Vassar in the Shell Rahal Ford, the car that Vassar won here in last year. They are out of this race right at the first turn.
What a disaster for those two. There's Vassar. He's still in that car. Hard to know what damage there is. I think it's fairly extensive damage to the right side of it. So those two are certainly going to be out of the running. And poor Roberto Moreno's prediction there that Kenny Brack was going to be moving forward. Well, I think he would have been moving forward, but he's not going to be moving forward any further this afternoon. He had a great car, I think, coming into this race. And for whatever happened, they will try and have a look at that replay and find out exactly what happened. But certainly at the back of the pack there, it was really tightly matched indeed. And up at the front, Dario Franchitti got a huge jump. And even with that, they decided to throw the green flag. That, of course, had nothing to do with that incident farther back in the pack. And it's a great shame to see two potential front runners here out at the very first corner.
Well, how many times is Jimmy going to get taken out early in the race? It happened first round of the year in Mexico, in Monterey. It's happened again here in Chicago. The year has just been not that enjoyable for Jimmy Vasser.
God, I tell you what, the Paul Tracy made an astonishing start. He started, where was he on the grid? 13th. He came past 7th. So I think Kenny Brack was probably trying to follow him. Well, actually, he was Paul was behind Kenny on the grid, I think, wasn't he? So he went round the outside of Kenny, and then, well, here we are. Look at this
replay.
Look at these packed cars there. That's Kenny Brack on the outside. He just turns into the corner. Jimmy's already there. There are already 3 abreast in front of him. I don't really know what Kenny was doing there. He must have made a poor getaway there initially, and he's trying to make it up around the outside. He turned into the corner, and Vasser couldn't go anywhere, and Brack just turned into the corner and took them both out. That was 100% Kenny's fault, you've got to say, but why he was back there, I don't know. Here's a replay again. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars in echelon, and he just turns into the front wheel of Jimmy's car. Unbelievable.
Pretty wild stuff. And that's it, those 2 gone. Look at the car shatter, the bodywork, the rear end.
A lot of carbon fibre on these cars, of course, and once again a replay, and you can see there, Kenny's just on the outside. Look at that, he just turned straight down into the corner. I mean, what he should have done there is he realised he was in a poor position in any case, backed out of the throttle, followed them through, and then tried to get a run coming off the corner. It's much easier to get a run down the back straight here, but it's always going to get crowded there at the first corner when you're turning into that corner. It's not a particularly wide track here, but nor is it particularly narrow either.
And Michael Andretti, a very narrow escape. He was right there with Jimmy Vasser and almost got tangled up in that. So Andretti was lucky. He's moved up 3 positions on the grid as well, from 14th to 11th. The overhead shot, watch it here, watch right of your screen. Kenny Brack coming down and just crunches on Vasser. Now look at Andretti there, hard on the brakes and narrowly misses Vasser. Good escape from Andretti, not so lucky for Vasser, and of course Brack, who instigated the whole thing. They build up to speed out of turn 3, out of turn 4, coming onto the main straight this time round. We see green, now it's waved off. So the restart is waved off.
And once again, I think Dario Franchitti there got on the power a bit too soon, and again a bit of an inconsistency, I would say, here amongst the kart officials. They decided it was okay last time around, so Dario takes the opportunity to do so again, and this time they say, no, you're jumping too soon. Let's wait and get this field. You're supposed to bring the cars around turn 3 or 4 at a steady speed and a steady acceleration, rather than now as he jumps on the throttle coming through turn 3. He's got a big jump here, but the green is out. When Jim Swintel, this race is back on, Leadivy.
Watch Canaan, look at Canaan on the inside of Alex Tagliani, coming into turn 1, not quite close enough that time round. D'Amata still sits in 4th spot, then back to Bruno Junqueira, top 5 around the outside. That looked like Michael Andretti.
It is Michael Andretti. He went around the outside of Scott Dixon and Tora Takagi, and he's now right up behind Patrick Carpentier.
His technical teammate as well. Here goes Andretti again on the outside of Patrick Carpentier. Great racing from Mikey, and that's Paul Tracy just 2 cars up ahead. Tracy went from 13th to 7th. Andretti again, turn 1. Another one ticked off the list. Beautiful outside move.
Who says you can't pass here at Chicago Motor Speedway? Michael Andretti wasn't listening to any of that. Great move by Michael, and he's defending the position there from Carpentier.
Will he put the same move on Tracy? Not quite close enough at the moment. They're coming up on Adrian Fernandez now. It's still Franchitti up front. Watch Michael Andretti here. He just went right around the outside. He's trying it again now. Not quite close enough on Paul Tracy this time. We'll pull back in, tuck back into the draft. Great stuff.
Great stuff indeed, and we saw Michel Jourdain Jr. trying to make a move on Dominguez as well. Wasn't able to pull that off, and in the meantime, Dario Franchitti just pulling away a little bit at the front of the field.
Well, from a lucky escape, Michael Andretti has just got the foot to the floor and is making the most of it. Started in this race in 14th position, currently runs in 8th. The updated FedEx running order, now that we are under green at the top of your screen. Franchitti leads the way by 1.5 seconds over Tagliani and Canaan, the top 3, but this is where the action's been happening, a little further back in the field. Andretti had a dreadful time in qualifying yesterday where the pop-off valve stuck open, and he wasn't happy. It was a pretty poor qualifying performance. He did what Adrian Fernandez did and brought out the backup car withdrew that initial qualifying time and improved 2 positions. Adrian Fernandez, on the other hand, did the same. He was the first to do it. Adrian went from 17th to 6th.
Yeah, that was a great effort by Fernandez Racing. It was an engine problem on that the primary car of Adrian Fernandez, and they decided, what the heck, nothing ventured, nothing gained. There was still plenty of time left in that qualifying session, so they thought, what the heck, we'll bring out the backup car, we'll have a go, and they did that. And Adrian Fernandez just had 1 lap to set that time rather than 2 that everybody else had, but it really was an excellent effort to get himself up into a P6 at the end of that session.
Finished on the podium back in here in 2000, Michael Andretti, when he followed Cristiano De Matta home. Here's our race leader, Dario Franchitti, enjoying now a 2.5 second lead.
Yeah, he's stretching it out and very consistent. Each of his last 4 or 5 laps, 24.8 seconds. That's about 3 or 4 tenths of a second quicker than the second place car of Alex Tagliani. He's running fast, of course. When he's running fast, he's also going to be using a little bit more fuel than some of these other guys, which means when they come in for their pit stops, he's going to perhaps have to take on a little bit more fuel. But if he's far enough ahead, that extra fuel, the extra time it takes to put in that fuel isn't going to be a factor, and maybe he can have some clear road ahead of him. So good driving here from Dario Franchitti. He's looking for that first ever win on an oval track. He's won plenty of times on road courses, of course. He's got 7 wins to his name, and now he has 11 poles to his name, but no wins yet in the oval ranks.
And he's the only one in the green organisation yet to win this year. Of course, Paul Tracy cleaned up at Milwaukee, and Michael Andretti at Long Beach. There's second place Alex Tagliani. Had some problems in the big 2.25 hour practice session yesterday. Blew an engine late in that session, but came back very, very strong in qualifying. Enjoying some clear space. Franchitti ahead, Kanaan behind, but there's 1.5 seconds back to Tony Kanaan, so there's no immediate pressure on Alex Tagliani.
And certainly this race order now has settled down. There's some overtaking there, a flurry of overtaking in the opening stages, and those are the guys that are able to push the cars to their very limit on cold tyres. Remember, of course, unlike in Formula 1 where they're allowed tyre warmers to get those tyres up to pressure, up to temperature right away, here in Champ Cars they start off with fresh, cold tyres, and it takes a little bit of time to build up that pressure, build up those temperatures in the rubber, and get these Bridgestone Potenza tyres working absolutely to their maximum. So the guys that are prepared to put themselves out on a limb, if you like, in the early stages of the race, and the guys are able to make a passes. Well, Pablo Montoya, he was a master at that. Michael Andretti and Paul Tracy, 2 of the other masters at that as well.
Dario Franchitti, the Scotsman, enjoying a very comfortable lead margin at the moment. Out of turn 4 to complete another lap. Let's ride with his teammate for a moment, Paul Tracy. Let's have a listen.
Up into top gear, down the back straight, down 1 gear, down 2 gears into turn 3, and you can see him now fighting that car. Not too much at all. Pretty smooth there for Paul Tracy. Here we are now, up into 5th gear, up into 6th gear, and almost right away again, down a couple of gears to turn 1. You can see these drivers, there's no cakewalk around this track. Might only be 2 corners that are pretty much the same. It's kind of like a paperclip, this track in Chicago. Long straights, tight corners. But you've got to be really on top of the game to get the most out of the car. They're pulling about well over 3 Gs through these turns, up to 190 miles an hour on the front straight. Down again, heavy on the brakes, down to minimum speed probably right now, 115, 117 miles an hour, something like that.
Paul Tracy maintains his 7th position. Meanwhile, the battle of the Brazilians goes on. De Matta chasing hard after Kanaan for that 3rd spot, and Cristiano is going for his 3rd consecutive win. He had a hat-trick earlier in the year if you count the last 2 races, Surfers Paradise and Fontana, and then Monterrey in Mexico, but he's trying to do it within the 1 season. Absolutely dominant performances at Laguna Seca and Portland, and that's why he has that 20-point lead in the FedEx Championship Series at the moment. Knows what it takes to win, He did it whilst driving for PPI back in 2000 here at Chicago Motor Speedway, his maiden kart victory. And he's sitting a very strong fourth at the moment. Junqueira, Fernandez, Tracy, Andretti, Carpentier and Takagi make up the 10.
Again, pretty consistent, these guys. That is Cristiano Domana. His best lap so far, 25.1 seconds. And that's the same for Tagliani, for Canaan, for Junqueira. All those guys running a best lap around about the same. Dario Franchitti, though, he's lapping now not quite as quick as he was earlier on. His best lap was a 24.7. That was on lap 19. But since then, he's settled into a pace now around about 25.3 seconds. So it's still marginally quicker than the guys battling for third and fourth. Tagliani is in a fairly secure second place. Then Canaan under pressure from this man, Cristiano Domana.
The Kart Grand Prix of Chicago continues. We see coming into the pits Patrick Carpentier in the Players Ford on lap 48.
And that's an interesting move there by that team, because he was running in the middle of the pack, was Patrick. He was running in, what, 9th place, and that's an early strategy here. And he's certainly the only one, I think, who's getting ready to make a pit stop.
Well, a lot of communication there from Patrick Carpentier back to the pit box. He's gesturing, talking. What's going on with the talking? Talk to me, communicate better. Something like that. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, not quite sure what that was all about. We'll try and find out for you there, but certainly it was a long pit stop for Patrick Carpentier, and he will have lost probably a couple of laps. Have to wait until he gets to see when it, yeah, I think he's 2 laps down now. And Dario Franchitti, meanwhile, is still behind the car of Christian Fittipaldi. He's running about 50 yards behind, so he hasn't really shown his nose to Christian Fittipaldi in order to prove to the kart officials that he's being held up. But there's no doubt about it, because Tagliani now is just over 1 second behind.
In comes Carpentier again. So, costly stuff for Patrick Carpentier. He's got some problems. And speaking of problems, well, it all ended very prematurely for Shell Rahal Ford driver Jimmy Vasser. Jimmy, it's Lee Diffie here in the commentary box. That was disappointing to see you go out so quickly.
Yeah, you know, not only you, but for me, I don't know. And I'm not really sure what Brack is thinking. It's 250 miles around here, and it just, you know, kind of put us in a tough position there.
What is it with you getting taken out on the first lap of races, huh?
I don't know, man. You got any insight for me on that one?
No, we were wondering ourselves.
Yeah, hi, Jimmy, this is Jeremy here, and that was awfully bad. Look, I mean, you looked like you were biding your time there. You realised that there was 3 cars in echelon ahead of you on the inside. You realised there was nowhere to go. Looked like you were just sort of tucking in behind there, and all of a sudden, Kenny Brack comes around the outside. He just got greedy on you, and you know, there is a long way to go. What were you thinking? I mean, irrespective of Brack, what was your thinking going into that turn?
Well, I was looking at Paul Tracy. He had a good jump up the middle on the start, and then when he got just about clear of me, he kind of jerked just in front of me, so I had to move a little bit to the outside and back off a bit early. But at that point, we were coming into the corner, and you know, I thought I was pretty much in an outside position already, and my focus was more on Tracy and what was going on right in front of me there. You know, and I guess that was at the point where Brack was kind of come flying around the outside, and I think I think when he finally got somewhere alongside of me, he kind of pinched it down on me. You know, it happened pretty quick. I mean, I was a little bit surprised.
Jimmy, thanks for your time. Sorry to see you out so quickly, and we'll see you in a week's time in Canada.
All right, man.
Jimmy Vasser out of the Kart Grand Prix of Chicago, and not very happy, as you can well imagine. We continue on lap 55, and this man, Alex Tagliani, has driven a very good race so far. He's just 1.1 seconds behind Dario Franchitti. Canaan, Domana, Junqueira, still your top 5, as Michel Jourdain Jr. a little further down the order in 14th. Has finished in the top 10 in every race this year.
And just ahead of, you can see just ahead of Jourdain there, a couple of cars battling together. Mario Dominguez now, he's looking increasingly desperate, trying to get around Townsend Bell. Townsend, he struggled at Milwaukee on the oval there, qualified dead last. He wasn't much better off here. but he's now really having to work to stay ahead of Mario Dominguez and Jourdain and Fittipaldi, and then behind Fittipaldi is the race leader Dario Franchitti, and finally there is the blue flag for those 4 cars holding up Dario Franchitti. That pace now, once again, 25.7 last time around. So the guys at the back, they're running about 3 or 4 tenths of a second slower than the leaders want to run, I think, at this stage in the race. That's all it takes, 3 or 4 tenths of a second. It's so tightly packed, this field.
Patrick Carpentier is still in pit lane and going nowhere. Problems there for the second player's car. Meanwhile, for the other one, Tagliani is zeroing in on Franchitti. Tagliani doesn't mind Dario being held up at all.
You're right, he doesn't. And then about a little less than 3 seconds behind Tagliani is the third place car of Tony Kanaan, with D'Amato just about 20 yards or so behind him. But this battle here with Townsend Bell holding off Mario Dominguez, then Jourdain, and then Fittipaldi. Jim Swintali, he didn't show. Oh, there's Patrick Carpentier out of this race. What a disappointment for Patrick. He just seems to have all sorts of bad luck. He had a couple of good results. The last 2 races he finished 5th. He had a 4th a couple of races before that. So consistent points for Patrick. Got himself up to 6th in the points table. But I don't think he won't be adding to that tally this afternoon.
We'll see these front-running cars come in within the next 8 laps. There is Mario Dominguez for Herdez Competition. Picked up his kart career best result last time round at Portland, but wasn't very pleased with the performance overall. And putting pressure on his fellow rookie, Townsend Bell, who has been struggling here this weekend. Very similar to his Milwaukee performance.
Townsend Bell on the left side of your screen, coming off turn 4. He's able to get the power down well with that Reynard chassis. That's Patrick Racing's car, and it's through the middle of the corner, I think, that Mario Dominguez really has a run in it. And on the entry to the corner as well, Mario looks so much better than Townsend Bell, but he's not able to get himself in a position to make that pass. And he's only about, say about 6 or 7 car lengths. He closes that up under braking, but he's not able to close enough. It's a big difference between 6 or 7 car lengths and getting right alongside someone to make a pass, a clean pass here on the open. There again is a blue flag being shown to Christian Fittipaldi. The gap back to the race leader Dario Franchitti, who's stayed stagnant now for about 10 or 12 laps.
Well, the latest to exit this Kart Grand Prix of Chicago is Patrick Carpentier. Hi, Patrick, it's Lee Diffie here. What happened?
We had problems from the beginning of the race. It wouldn't run. I think the valve was hitting the piston or something, and it got worse and worse from there, and I was really down on power, and finally the engine just shut down. So I don't know exactly what it is, but we'll find out. It's too bad.
That's a shame, Patrick. This is Jeremy Shaw up here in the booth, and you had high hopes coming this weekend. You were quick in practice yesterday, and your teammate did a great job. He had an engine problem, of course, in that morning session yesterday. They put a fresh engine in that car, and yet another engine problem again today, Hard. So disappointing.
Yeah, it is disappointing. I think my car was pretty fast in mid-corners. I seem to be catching Michael a little bit, but I was so down on the power, and then it finally, I knew it was going to go away. There was no way it was going to last the whole race, but I was hoping to get some points.
Some good close racing early on with Michael Andretti when he made that outside move on you, huh?
Yeah, that was a pretty good move, actually. Michael's always been pretty quick out there, and I tried to keep up with the guys a couple of times down the straightaway, and I got past twice, but hey, good move from him.
Yeah, we're sorry for you, Patrick, but the good news is you got just 1 week before you go to effectively almost a hometown race for you in Toronto. High hopes for there?
Yeah, I hope it's going to be good. You know, we hope to get a good car, get a bit of a break, and this year we seem to get more points on the road course and street, so hopefully it's going to be good.
Thanks, Patrick. We'll see you in a week's time in Toronto.
Thank you.
Patrick Carpentier there out of the race. That makes 3 now. Brack, Vassar and Patrick out of this one. We're left with 15 cars, and Dario Franchitti is still your race leader. And this battle continues. We've got 3 Brazilians in it now. Kanaan, D'Amato and Junqueira, 3, 4 and 5.
Yeah, what's interesting now, this whole pack is beginning to close up. Oh, here they come. Pit stops. Dario Franchitti, lap 68. This is when they have to pit. So everybody now closing in. And before these pit stops, they'd all been trying to turn some quick laps and get closer to the race leader. So now the race is from on the racetrack. Now it is in pit lane.
It comes down to good, solid teamwork. It was fascinating in Portland between Target, Chip Ganassi and Newman Haas. That battle went on for the whole race long. Team Green go hard at it as they try and serve Dario as quickly and as efficiently as possible. He's gone. He's been sent. And Tagliani gets out before him. Alex Tagliani has beaten Frank Kitty out. Great stuff from the players' team. Frustration for Team Green. And there's a bit of jostling going further back. Good work from Newman Haas as well. DeMatter has come out second.
Yeah, now I wonder, I'm sure that George Klotz's boys there for number 27 car, Dario Franchitti, they would have put on a full stop. They can get that track position and then maybe pull away from Dario Franchitti. And then when they come in next time around, maybe they've got enough of a gap to be able to make that, put on more fuel next time around, or at least one stop this afternoon. They're going to have to put on more fuel than Dario Franchitti. And track position, as we've seen, so important here at Chicago Motor Speedway. And Alex Tagliani, he has that track position now. He's in the lead. Darius Franchitti back in third place, just ahead of Bruno Junqueira.
Ever since we went green after that initial caution because of the Brack Vassar situation, it has been a hard, fast pace.
Having said that, of course, yeah, this is a race leader. Of course, I forgot about that, didn't I? These two guys stopped in that early sequence of that long yellow early on. Michel Jourdain Jr. and Christian Fittipaldi. They both pitted on lap 5 for Jourdain. So he's got another couple of laps to go now before he needs to make a pit stop. And Christian Fittipaldi is running in second place now. He stopped 2 laps after Jourdain. So they have the best of the track position right now.
And Michel Jourdain is heading in again.
Yeah, and he will come in now. This is lap 73 for him, so that's 68 laps on from his last pit stop. Christian Fittipaldi, he will be able to do 2 more laps before he will need a pit stop. And behind Fittipaldi on the racetrack, 1 lap down is Townsend Bell. But relative to the other guys, Townsend has pulled away quite a long way from the effective race leader, which will be Alex Tagliani. So I wonder whether also Patrick Racing tried to keep on the lead lap there by putting a little bit...
Daniel Jacks for the Gigante Ford team, and Michel Jourdain Jr. a problem there. And this is costly time-wise. Very, very costly. Now the Mexican is sent on his way. We'll expect Christian Fittipaldi in very, very soon. He continues on. Meanwhile, behind them, it's Tagliani, DeMatter, Franchitti 4, Junqueira 5, Kanaan 6, Fernandez 7, Tracy Andretti, Takagi. That order remains the same.
Pit, Christian, pit, pit, pit.
And that is Christian Fittipaldi's crew. Pit. It's lap 8 that he came onto pit lane, apparently. Not lap 7, I must have made that wrong. But lap 8, so this time we are 68 laps on from there. This time, Christian Fittipaldi will be on pit lane, and his pit crew is the best in the business this year. Kevin Chambers and the boys on that number 11 car. They have been fastest in many of the races. Every pit stop for every car is timed, and they award points.
Pit lane is clear.
Pit lane is clear, they say to Christian Fittipaldi. He doesn't have to worry.
Brandon, you're pulling with the lights. Pull with the lights, Brandon. It's your mark.
There's a season-long pit stop competition. It's led by these guys. Here they are going to work right now.
Okay, get ready. Go, 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 go! What's your speed on?
In and out. Alex Tagliani takes the lead of this race for the first time today. From DeMatter, Franchitti, Junqueira and Kanaan. So not only did Dario Franchitti lose the race lead, Kanaan got shuffled back, hustled back out of his 3rd position, back to 5th. And Fittipaldi back on his way again. Here comes Tagliani.
Fittipaldi is still on the lead lap, so that strategy worked for them. He was able to lead a couple of laps as well. And Fittipaldi is now back down in 13th place, but still on the same lap as the leader. And he is still behind Townsend Bell, so it'll take him a little bit of a time to catch up with Townsend Bell. And in the meantime, Tagliani will have his hands full, staying ahead of... there's Michael Andretti coming in to make what must be not a routine pit stop.
He did come in on lap 68. We're on lap 80 now. Let's hope this isn't too serious for the Motorola driver. It is serious.
Yeah, smoke coming from the back of that car, that's never a good sign, is it? And you see the engine cover coming off, and frustration there for Michael Andretti.
As the team go to work, Tora Takagi takes Andretti's 8th place. Dixon moves up to 9, and Shinji Nakano is inside the top 10. Both Fernandez cars having a very strong run here. There is Shinji Nakano. And Michael Andretti is out. It's all over for the Long Beach race winner. And a pat on the shoulder from Mario saying, never mind. We'll get him next weekend in Toronto. Nakano continues on, trying to replicate his best finish of the season that he picked up in Japan at the Motegi circuit. He sits in that exact position, the same position, 10th. As the drivers are about 3rd race distance. Very, very hot here. If you've just joined us, it's 34 degrees Celsius. Track temperature is something like 53 degrees Celsius. And these boys are being made to work hard as Cristiano D'Amata is now less than a second behind Alex Tagliani.
And not far behind him is Dario Franchitti in 3rd place, and putting Franchitti under quite a bit of pressure over the last few laps was Bruno Junqueira. He's running some very quick laps there, but he wasn't able to make a move, and now the first 4 have spread out just a little bit. They're all equally spaced now, about sort of, maybe half or 3/4 of a second apart. That's about 25 car lengths or so, I would estimate. And there you go, 1, 2, 3, 4 across the start finish line. A little bit of a gap back to Tony Kanaan. Then is Adrian Fernandez, Paul Tracy, and behind Paul Tracy is the laps car of Mario Dominguez. Then a little bit of a gap back to Tora Takagi and Scott Dixon, who are running together. Then right behind Scott Dixon are Shinji Nakano and Michel Jourdain Jr., who's also 1 lap down in 14th place. So behind Nakano in 10th, a bit of a gap back to Townsend Bell. Christian Fittipaldi, the last car on the lead lap, in 12th place.
The Kart Grand Prix of Chicago is now 100 laps old, 150 to go, as we work our way towards the halfway mark of this 7th round of the FedEx Championship Series. And could this be the day for the likeable Canadian Alex Tagliani? Can he pick up his first kart victory? What about this guy, the rookie, Mario Dominguez, currently running in 13th position? Can he win the private battle over Townsend Bell in the battle of the rookies? Bell is 2 positions up the road in 11th.
He's 2 positions up the road, but he also a lap ahead of Mario Dominguez. A slow first pit stop, I think, for the Herdez team, and that cost Mario dramatic time, and he will be unable, I think, to make up that lost lap. And talking about this Herdez team, some changes coming up there. Keith Wiggins, the managing director, is making a few shuffles around in that pit crew. They're taking on Darrell Fox, who is a New Zealander who was the crew chief for Scott Dixon at PWR, and before that the Pac West Racing Group, and he will take over as the lead chief mechanic on that car on Monday, in fact. So when we go to Toronto in 1 week's time, Darrell Fox will be the crew chief, and Vince Kramer has been elevated to the position of team manager on that Herdez car.
Busy time of the Kart FedEx Championship Series. As we've been mentioning, we go to Toronto in a week's time, and then straight after that, it's to Cleveland, Ohio for the Burke Lakefront Airport race. The last time Dario Franchitti won in the Kart Championship. We ride with Bruno Junqueira. The car immediately ahead is Franchitti. working hard. Some good quick hands there. Bruno Junqueira correcting a couple of situations and continuing the chase after Dario Franchitti for that third spot. And was very impressive a fortnight ago in Portland when he chased Cristiano Di Matta down but just couldn't quite get there.
Catching and passing, of course, two entirely different matters altogether, as we're finding out this afternoon when the guys are able to get closer to the guy in front of him. As Michael Andretti said, offline here, just immediately above the racing line, if you like, the outside groove really has not come into play this afternoon. It's very, very slippery. As these Bridgestone Potenza tires tend to throw off little bits of rubber, marbles they call them. They accumulate just off the racing line. If you get off that racing line, you're basically history. It's very difficult to keep control of the car. So that is why we're not seeing any outside line passing yet this afternoon. At least not since those early stages of the race.
Ford Cosworth searching for their first victory of 2002. Alex Tagliani could very well bring them that win, but we've got a long way to go.
We do have a long way to go, but he's certainly turning up the wick a little bit now. Alex Tagliani is stretching away just a little bit. He's lapping now around about 25.2, so he's come down a couple of tenths of a second. He was very, very consistent, 25.4, 25.3. Last couple of laps at 25.2, and that has enabled him to pull out to almost 2 seconds over Cristiano Di Matta, this man here in second place. He's coming off 2 consecutive victories from the pole. Didn't qualify on the front row this weekend, but he's certainly got a strong car, and that's a good news for Newman Haas Racing. The oval races, both last year and this year, they struggled. They struggled hugely at Motegi. The car was a lot better at Milwaukee, where he didn't really get a chance to show it. But this afternoon, that car is working very well. But this guy here, Alex Tagliani, again, 25.2 last time around. And I just wonder whether he took on a little bit less fuel in that first pit stop to get that track position. Can he maintain it as this race goes along? We're now 111 laps into this race, and he made his first pit stop on lap 68. So the next time they're going to have to make a pit stop would be lap 36.
36, yeah. It's all looking nice at the moment. 1.9 seconds, the margin from Tagliani to Di Matta. Franchitti some 2.8 seconds behind Tagliani. We ride with Tony Kanaan. Had a fascinating chat with Mo Nunn, the team owner, earlier, and Jeremy and I said to him, Mo, are you just crossing your fingers that the bad luck will stop? And he said, it hasn't been bad luck. He said, there's been a reason for everything that's happened to us. We had 3 engine failures. He said, that's uncharacteristic. And he said, for the other situations, there are reasons, not excuses. And he said, so it'll happen. Race leader Alex Tagliani. From Di Matta in the Newman Haas Haviland Toyota, has won 5 of the last 8 races if you go back to Surfers Paradise late last year.
I'm looking at the fastest lap set by everybody this afternoon, and they ran the quickest lap so far was set by Dario Franchitti. That was way back on lap 19, 24.761, average speed 149.6 miles an hour. That's only he and, interestingly, Christian Fittipaldi have actually been in the 24-second range, but the whole of the rest of the field has lapped at 25.0 or 25.1, except for Jourdain, who was a 25.2. Absolutely incredible.
Tagliani enjoyed a very solid run at Motegi in Japan, where he came home behind Bruno Junqueira to stand on the podium for the only time this year. And it's been very, very solid stuff so far from the Canadian, who lives in Las Vegas, just like fellow Canadians Paul Tracy and Patrick Carpentier. Can he hold this man at bay? Well, he's put near enough to half a second on him over the last 3 laps. Margin now to 2.2 seconds. And great pit stops from both teams, from Players and Newman Haas. We'll see if they can do it again. Within the next 16 laps, we will see them in.
Yeah, this is a real chess game right now, and you know, it's certainly disappointing, I suppose, there's not more overtaking in this race, but there's a lot of strategy involved here, and you've got to be consistent. It's so easy to make a mistake on this sort of a track, and we're still not even halfway through the race. A lot of time to go, so you don't want to be making any mistakes, throwing things away like we saw in the early stage of the race by a couple of guys. You just need to run consistently, and then as we get nearer to this second round of pit stops, you want to get as close as you can to the guy in front of you, and then let your pit crew go to work, and maybe they can make a pass for you. But it's so closely matched, this championship, and that is why it's so difficult to pass here, because there's no discrepancy between the cars. All they're running very similar pace all the way up and down the field, the entire field. Plus, these Bridgestone Potenza racing tyres are so consistent. In the old days, the tyres would go off. They would lose a lot of grip as the race stint went along. They'd lose as much as 2 seconds a lap between when they were fresh and when they were old. Right now, that doesn't happen with these brilliant tyres that the Bridgestone engineers have come up with. And it's kind of, if you like, to the detriment of the racing. But still, it's a great chess game out there, and these guys are pushing as hard as they can and trying to make themselves get in a position to be able to make a pass either in the pits or in the closing stages of this race.
We watched a couple of laps there with Adrian Fernandez in the Tecate Honda. He's chasing this man, Tony Kanaan, for the 5th position. And for Adrian Fernandez, just how valuable that move was yesterday, that strategical move in qualifying to withdraw his initial car, get his backup car. The first time when he started from scratch, it was a huge gamble, and elevated himself from 17th to 6th. If he was still back down at the back of the pack there, Jeremy, he may very well have got caught up in that incident with Kenny Brack and Jimmy Vasser. So for Fernandez, it was the right move, it was a great move, and now he's challenging for a top 5 spot.
He certainly is, and driving very well as well, and super consistent. Again, all these guys, just incredible consistency at the front of the field. Actually, as I say, that last time around, Tagliani was a 25.6, which is the first time he's not been in a 25.2 or 3 for about, 30 or 40 laps. More than that, actually. Yeah, 30 or 40 laps. All his lap times within 0.2 of a second. Amazing.
Paul Tracy immediately behind Adrian Fernandez for 7th. We're over the halfway mark of the Kart Grand Prix of Chicago. And this was the guy who was smooth as at Milwaukee. Paul Tracy, very, very good. Everyone's trying to stay cool here, whether it's under some shade or in front of a fan or wherever. It is very, very hot and humid.
Yeah, and that to me just makes it all the more amazing that these cars are able to run this consistently. I thought, or a lot of people thought, that tyre wear was going to be a factor this afternoon, but it certainly hasn't been so far. 25.5 last time around for Tagliani, and virtually the whole field now doing the similar lap time. So it looks like about 50 laps or so into the stint, maybe the tyres just lose a little bit of grip, but it certainly isn't much.
Tagliani continues to lead the way from D'Amato and Franchitti. Pit stops coming up. The Kart Grand Prix of Chicago continues, and Dario Franchitti is in the pit lane. Paul Tracy has already been serviced as well. Out goes Tora Takagi. It was in fact Tracy, not Franchitti in pit lane. We continue. And Tony Kanaan sliding down the order. Now, in comes race leader Alex Tagliani.
So slightly earlier than he needed to, a couple of laps earlier than he needed to, and that would lead me to believe that maybe he did take on a little less fuel than he needed to last time around.
Reset your fuel meter, you're going to have to do without a drink, okay? Hold it, go, 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 go.
And that was Neil Mickle right there, the Vice President of Operations for Team Players.
Cristiano D'Amato inherits the race lead We're getting within the next 2 to 3 laps, and you'll see this guy in, if not now. D'Amato is in. In he comes. Race leader for just 2 laps. Now the pressure's on. Dario Franchitti immediately behind. Kanana's already in. The Mode None team go to work. And Team Green will be working very hard to make amends for that first stop. They'll want to service Dario a lot faster than before and try and get him out ahead of Cristiano D'Amato. There's a massive distance between Team Green and Newman Haas on the pit road. Newman Haas here on screen. They're way up the road. Franchitti has been released. D'Amato's gone and Junqueira's gone as well.
Wow. And once again, Dario Franchitti lost time there on the pit lane, no doubt about it. The other guys were quite a bit quicker, and they are already making their way onto the back straight. D'Amato is ahead of Bruno Junqueira, and here comes Tagliani, right behind Junqueira on the outside. Tagliani goes around the outside. There they are, in turn 3, and Tagliani's up. He's in that loose, he's in the grey, and he's lost an awful lot of momentum.
Tight stuff there through turns 3 and 4.
Okay, get it gathered up. Let's charge back.
Get it gathered up and let's charge back. The instructions from pit lane. And that was close between Tagliani and Junqueira.
That was very close down there, and it's going to take Tagliani a lap or 2 to get that excess rubber, those marbles off those tyres. You're going to weave around a little bit on the straight. He's already done that, and he's now going to get back into his groove.
We're still just over halfway, so we've got the rest of the race to catch and beat him.
There we go, there's Neil Micker right there. You've got plenty of time to get back in the groove, get your momentum back again, and claw up back onto the tail of Cristiano D'Amato. Christian Fittipaldi, meanwhile, here he is trying to make a move on Mario Dominguez, who is a lap car. There is the new race leader, Christian Fittipaldi. Another few laps, and he will be into pit lane. But again, he is taking advantage of this, well, he hoped to be a clear track to make some time on the field. It's not going to happen for him.
Once Fittipaldi comes in, the new order will be D'Amato, Junqueira, Tagliani, Franchitti back to 4th.
Pit.
Oh, and here's Adrian Fernandez in the pits as well. This is an unscheduled stop. He was in just the 3 or 4 laps ago. We'll see what happens here. He's pulling in very, very slowly. So clearly a major problem, I think, for Adrian Fernandez. Don't know whether it was dead stick or not. They're going to change. Are they going to? They're not going to do very much, are they? Here, though. Here is the race leader, Christian Fittipaldi, in for his routine pit stop.
Brandon, you pull with the lights. Brandon, pull with the lights. 4 tires, fuel. You put on the brake. Easy.
Stops right on his marks. Christian Fittipaldi.
Okay, tires about done. Get ready. Hold it. No.
Here comes Cristiano D'Amato, his teammate, as D'Amato crosses the line. Fittipaldi exits pit lane. Oh, and he spun! Christian Fittipaldi has spun! And that is the 3rd time this year we have seen a rear wheel drop off. First it was Paul Tracy at Laguna Seca, then Kenny Brack in Portland, and now for the 3rd consecutive race meeting, a rear wheel has fallen off.
Wow, what a disappointment there for those guys. They've been sensational pit stops all the way through this season, but that time it was obviously just a little bit too quick. That left rear clearly wasn't seated on the hub. It fell off as soon as he got on the throttle coming off turn 2, and that's a huge disappointment for Christian Fittipaldi. He'd done well that pit. Those guys had worked a pretty good strategy that kept him in contention, but now it's all gone away.
Wow. And again, we thank our lucky stars that no one came in contact. That wheel didn't get anyone. No one hit the wheel. And look at the Lilly team. They can't believe it. The Newman Haas boys.
What a shame that is. And finally, we can all catch a bit of a breather here. That was an awful long way since that early yellow right at the beginning of the race, and we've been green all the way since then. So we went green on lap 14 it was when we had that aborted restart initially, all the way through to lap 143. We've got 9 cars now on the lead lap. We've got Bell, Dominguez and Jourdain one lap down to the leaders. There's Christian Fittipaldi, the mandatory trip into the ambulance and back to the infield care centre just for a quick checkup. And that's a huge disappointment for him, because that car had been running very, very well indeed. He and Dario Franchitti still, well, they were the only two guys to have lapped under 25 seconds. However, since this last round of pit stops, they've been joined by a whole bunch of guys. Dario Franchitti was probably pretty frustrated after losing time in the pits. He's done a quicker lap. He's done a 24.660, which is the fastest lap still of this race, and quicker than he went earlier on, 150.219 miles an hour. Is a replay of Fittipaldi losing that left rear wheel.
And yeah, not only is it the third consecutive race meeting someone's lost a wheel, it's been the same side every time, the rear left. Tracy in turn 4, Laguna Seca, Brack coming out of pit lane, just exiting turn 2, the turn 2-3 complex. Well, frustrating times.
It's a replay of Paul Tracy's second pit stop, and it was certainly a great stop by Paul, because he was able to get from, where was he before that round of pit stops? He'd been in 7th place, and he came in a couple of laps before the other guys, and that worked well. He was clearly, I think, being held up by Tony Kanaan in particular and Adrian Fernandez, and by coming in and making that slightly earlier stop, he was able to get out there, make full use of those brand new Bridgestone Potenza tyres, turn a couple of very fast laps, did Paul Tracy, and he got out ahead of both Fernandez and Tony Kanaan before when they finally made their pit stops a couple of laps later. So reset the order. We've still got D'Amata now in the lead from Junqueira, and Tagliani, who was able to keep that car off the wall over a very scary moment. Behind Tagliani is Franchitti and Tracy. Tora Takagi now up to 6th, and we're watching again a replay of Christian Fittipaldi's car. Here he comes around turn 2. You can see that car, that left rear wheel beginning to wobble. There comes a wheel nut right off the car, and around goes Christian. He has to duck as that wheel bounces over his head and into the outside retaining wall.
That could have been very, very nasty. Paul Newman looks on, and Carl Haas, the team owners.
And that team, of course, based just up the road here in Lincolnshire, Illinois, only half an hour or so away from here. They are the winningest active kart team, and you can see there the dejection from Paul Newman there.
So the revised order is D'Amata, Junqueira, Tagliani, Franchitti, and Paul Tracy continues to climb up the order. Michel Jourdain Jr. is in the pit lane again. Takagi, Kanaan, Nakano, and Bell top 10. Now, was that just wondering if I saw that late there for Jourdain Jr. Did he just do a drive-through penalty? I'm not sure. Meanwhile, oh, we've lost another left rear. That's Scott Dixon's car. Can you believe it?
That's amazing.
And the Target Chip Ganassi crew are dragging him back. That is Scott Dixon. And another left rear. Fortunately, he wasn't too far away.
Yeah, that's 2 of the 3 Target cars, and in the last 2 races, Kenny Brackett, you were saying, Lee Diffie, he had that problem in Portland. He got out onto the racetrack and it fell off and deposited him in the gravel trap. The great news, though, for Scott Dixon, it happened right as he left the pits, so they're able to drag him back, get on a new wheel and tyre, and send him on his way. And I think he might have got out without losing a lap, just. So that is tremendous news for Scott Dixon. I think he did.
Dixon back on track. A couple of impressive performances within this top 10, aside from our guys in the top 5. It's Paul Tracy and Tora Takagi. Takagi has moved up 2 positions from his starting of 8th to 6th. Kanaan is sliding down the order, back to 7th from Nakano, Dixon and Bell. Let's have a look at the updated points for the Craftsman Pit Crew Challenge. And Newman Haas have that handy 13-point lead over Team Rahal, and Ganassi, well, we saw their handiwork just there. They're third.
Yeah, and it's, each individual car is eligible for this award, which pays $50,000 at the final race of the season, which now, of course, will be in Mexico City in November. And they actually score points in the same way as do the overall championship points for the Kart FedEx Championship Series. So 20 points, 16, 14, 12, and on down from there. And those points are awarded according to how long each of those cars spends on pit lane during the race. And in order to be classified, they have to finish the race. They have to complete the full distance. So you have to complete the full distance, and then whoever has spent the least time on pit lane gets 20 points. The next less amount of time on pit lane gets 16 points, and on down the order. And as you see there, after 6 rounds, the Newman Haas crew, that's Kevin Chambers and the boys on Christian Filippoli's car, held a pretty nice 13-point cushion over that field. Well, that, of course, will be, if not all totally erased, certainly will be rapidly diminished before the end of today.
Back to the first of the 2 Team Cool Green cars. The Bluemobile of Dario Franchitti, pole sitter and early race leader, back to his teammate, Paul Tracy. Started well down the order in 13th and now is enjoying 5th position. Good stuff from Paul. Tora Takagi. Can he keep it together for another 99 laps? We've seen him do some silly stuff at times when he's been in good point scoring positions, but another solid qualifying effort for the former Formula One driver. Back to Mario Dominguez. Like Townsend Bell, a lap down, and overall the Herdez competition driver is in 11th position.
Done a pretty respectable job this afternoon, has Dominguez. He's turned some pretty good lap times, and now back to Tony Kanaan, who was struggling, as we saw before this latest round of pit stops, and he was really, I think his tyres had gone away more than the other guys, and he'd lost quite a bit of momentum there, and he lost some track time as well. He's back now into 7th place, having run 5th before that latest round of pit stops.
Kanaan needs to bag as many points as he can today. Best result of the season, 8th, and that was 2 weeks ago at Portland.
Yeah, and just everything it seems that can go wrong has gone wrong for that team this season. As we see Townsend Bell coming in to make a pit stop. Also Michel Jourdain Jr.'s crew also on pit lane there, getting ready for another pit stop for their guys. We're on lap, 153 now, so we're not yet within the window of being able to get to the end of this race on just one more pit stop.
Townsend Bell getting service from the Patrick crew. A fair bit of adjustment on the front wing. And out comes the Californian. In a point-scoring position in 10th, but is a lap down.
Yeah, he's certainly been struggling most of the weekend, but they made a big adjustment to the front wing there. I think trying to get a bit more bite into the front of the car. Having said that, before that latest round of pit stops, he was actually running some very competitive lap times, was Townsend Bell, but certainly they saw the need to make a fairly major adjustment. Here we are on board now with Paul Tracy. That is his teammate Dario Franchitti right ahead of him. These two in 4th and 5th places. Meanwhile, Adrian Fernandez, we talked about him. He has been on the pit lane and we saw that extended pit stop. He's now back in the race. He's a long way down. He's 8 laps behind the race leaders. And there was a broken bleed nipple on the left rear brake, so that would explain why Adrian came into the pit